Alright, in this video I'm going to be tying the McCredie Special. This is a fly that's part of the Pfeiffer collection. In the vise I have a size 2 Mustad 34007 hook. I'm going to be tying the fly with some black Danville's flat wax nylon. I'm going to start with the base of thread about a hook high, maybe a hook eye and a half behind the eye, and just go ahead and take my thread down to the barb of the hook. And snip away the excess on the thread. And then advance our thread back in to the tie-in point. For the body we're going to be using some red floss. I'm actually going to pull off about 18 inches to 2 feet or so of floss. And then I'm going to fold it in half around my thread. And then capture it. And with the ribbing I'm going to use some silver tinsel. And I'm going to pull out off about 6 to 8 inches of that. Just some silver tinsel. And again, I'm just going to capture that at my tie-in point as well. And then just bring my thread back to the barb. And then back up to the tie-in point. This pattern calls for a thick red floss body, and that's the reason that I folded it in half at our tie-in point, just to get a little bit thicker body quicker. And it'll also help keep the black from shining through the floss body. I'm just going to begin to wrap my body. And I'm just going to keep wrapping back down towards the butt of the fly. Get a good second layer of this floss to prevent the black from shining through and to build up that big fat body. I usually stop just short of the butt of the fly. Alright, I've got my floss wraps back up to our tie-in point. I'm just going to capture it with our thread. and snip away the excess. And next we're going to go ahead and wrap our ribbing. And then we'll capture the tinsel with our thread and snip away the excess. Now, to protect the floss body and tinsel, I like to just touch this with a little Sally Hansen's. I'm just going to touch the body with some Sally Hansen's here. You may notice it darkened the floss a little bit, but I think it still looks nice. It definitely leads to a more durable fly. Alright, our body is dry. For the wing, we're going to be using some black bear, and it calls for it to be tied in high, long, and sparsely. So I'm going to cut off a clump of black bear, and you want to pull out any of this fluff here. And that might be a little more than I want, so I'm going to pull some of it out. And I want the length to be about 1.5 times the shank of the hook. So I'm going to go ahead and tie that in and then just look at the length. That looks pretty good. A couple additional locking wraps there, and then we'll cut away the excess. Now, to get the wing to stand high, I'm going to make a few additional wraps, and I'm going to lift the wing and make a few wraps right behind it. Looks pretty good. Advance our thread forward slightly, and we'll tie in a throat. The pattern calls for polar bear, and obviously polar bear is near impossible to get in the United States. They're protected. And an imitation that's typically used is craft fur or polar fiber. I actually think for this fly, white kiptail actually works pretty well and makes it a nice looking fly. So I'm just going to pull out any, just hold by the tips and pull out any of the short hair fibers. We end up with a pretty consistent length throat. And I like to tie it in just short of the hook tip. I'll make a couple loose wraps. Pull it short. Looks pretty good. And same thing, I'm going to lift up the throat here and make a couple of wraps behind it just to help it stand. I'm going to snip away the excess. Maybe another wrap or two behind it. Key here is not to wrap on top of your wing, or else it'll start to lay down. So you want the throat to be a little bit forward of where you tied in the wing. That looks pretty good. We'll just go ahead and build up a decent head, and again, don't advance behind your throat or else all the hair will begin to lay down. Put up a nice round head because it calls for some painted on eyes. Looks pretty good. Just going to go ahead and whip finish. And snip away our excess. Go ahead and touch the head with some Sally Hansen's to protect the thread wraps before we paint on the eyes. And we'll let that dry. Alright, our head is dry, and I'm going to go ahead and paint on a white eye. I've just got some white nail polish here, and I'm just going to use a small screw. So I'm going to dip the screw in my paint. And then I just want to touch the paint to the eye, preferably without touching the head with the screw. And we'll let the eye dry. Alright, our eyes are dry, so I'm going to go ahead and paint on a black pupil. I've just got some black nail polish here, and I've got a small nail which I filed off the head. I'm just going to dip that nail in my paint and get a small bead of black paint on it. And then I'm just going to touch the head with the paint. Something about like that. So we'll go ahead and let the pupil dry and then hit it with one final coat of Sally Hansen's, but I'll spare you the monotony of that. So this is the McCredie Special, one of the flies in the Pfeiffer collection. Interesting fly with the black bare wing, and just a nice looking fly.